Is it possible with 1 or 2 weeks of really hard cramming to pass most med exams? I think yes. So here I'm going to teach you how I cram and how you can learn so much information in such a short period of time, which you can then use to like top up your exams and score as high as possible. There's a lot of misconceptions, but for the students out there, everyone crams. The top student crams and the bottom student crams. Well, actually, I don't know if the bottom student would cram, but cramming is almost an essential component of scoring as high as possible because you leverage both your long-term memory and your short-term memory. So what will happen is that the top students will have some baseline that they're working on during the year. So say you're always doing like an hour a day, and then at the end you'll kick it up, and then you'll go to your peak just for that last sprint at the end of the marathon. So here I'm going to share how I would cram for an exam. I'm going into my final set of exams this year. So the first thing is the time frame. And this, I think, sets apart like the top from the middle students, which is how long you cram for. For me, I'm probably thinking about cramming from about 1 month before the exam. So whereas others, if you're just trying to pass, you can get away with, as little as possible, be it a week, 2 weeks, some people a day. But for me, I'm thinking like 1 month before the exam, I'm going to step it up a bit because I want to like finish every single resource available. So 1 month, I'm going to think, what resources do I have access to? Now, and I basically lay them all out in a document. These resources might be practice exams. They might be like past like revision lectures or notes. They might be like sort of summary PDFs or essentially any like exams from the faculty or exams from like past students or just like general practice questions or like company questions. All right. And then I'll think like which of these is like going to be most relevant to my exam? I'll probably go through all of them, but so for example, like summary PDFs and like notes written by other people, I don't find them that relevant. So I'll review like the revision lectures and the summary notes pretty early on just to make sure there's nothing I've missed. I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing that. I'm just going to click through them and be like, okay, is there anything here that is completely new compared to what I've learned previously? I think for me, the high yield stuff are the questions and the exams. So I'm going to think like, how many questions do I have available? And if it's a med exam, like think about all the free question banks you may have access to. Geeky Medics, Path Medicine, eMedici. You can just Google online, med student, free questions. Maybe you have an Amboss subscription. So I think they have a free trial. How many of these like questions do you feasibly have? Because I want to finish all of them. So if I've got like 2,000 questions left and I've got 30 days, I've made the math easier for myself here. I'm going to do like 70 questions a day. If I've got, 20 practice exams left, maybe 15 of the faculty and 5, past student exams across 30 days, I'm going to do, roughly one practice exam per day. And so I'm going to make a plan about what I want to do each day over that last month and how I can like finish all of these resources. Then there's the issue of like, what do I do with the notes that I've revised? Now, ideally, I find like just revising my own notes is actually not that helpful in terms of, well, it is very helpful actually, but it's not that beneficial in terms of like time per study. So if I've got like, it's in med exams, I've got like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of words worth of notes, right? So to me, for actually to go through all those things, like takes so long. I try and get that done before this month. So to be honest, so for going into this set of exams, I've reviewed all the notes for year 3 and 4, just spending like 10 minutes a day doing that as part of my baseline prep. But what I will do is all my Ankies, I will reset them so that I do them within the month leading up to the exam. Because these are the things I have struggled with previously, the things that I've gotten wrong, I've made mistakes on. So I will schedule my Ankies such that every card I will do in the month before the exam. And so that ends up like notching up between being more than like the 10 minutes a day I do now. And I'll probably get to like 45 minutes, an hour a day of just these Ankies because they sort of serve as practice questions as well. So all the Anki cards I'll do in the month before the exam, but actually like going through and revising my notes, probably not unless I really like butcher a practice question and don't know what I'm talking about. Now, the day before the exam, So like essentially like the harsh reality of this is I'm just spamming like practice questions and anything I get wrong, I'm putting on the Anki and then doing more and more and more of. If I do a question and I realize I know nothing about it or there's a glaring weakness, then that's an indication to go further research into your notes. Um, so like let's say the question asks about like some diagnosis and then the options are um like these complex conditions that you've never heard of. Like say they're like, I don't know, sarcoidosis, familial hypocalcemic hypercalciuria, like tertiary parathyroidism, and you're just like, what the heck do these things mean? So then that's an indication just to be humble and say, I don't know anything about that. I'm going to then check my notes and revise those conditions, or I'm going to revise hypercalcemia as that topic. So yes, you can like check out your notes for some period as well. Now, unfortunately, what tends to happen is like you basically like push yourself to the brink of like burnout, which you'll hit like around here, if that makes sense. Because there's always more you can do. Now, I'd love to say that I'm like, the balanced guy who just like maintains everything and like everything's sweet. But to be honest, like, and I'm not suggesting you do this, but I would just do as much as it takes to finish all these materials in that one month before the exam. And then the day before the exam, depending on how I'm feeling, I'll probably have an earlier night, like maybe a half day, and sort of relax a bit in the night. And then the morning of the exam, I try and do nothing sort of study related. It's actually quite funny that generally the day of the exam, I spend like cleaning my house because I don't want to watch TV and I don't want to do like any work. So it tends to be like the one time in the year that I do like extensive cleaning and play my guitar. But I try and like, because you're pushing yourself so much, like, and take breaks, check out, I think I did a burnout video before that like covers it more comprehensively, but you can't like, don't like try not to like burn out prematurely here. If you feel it coming, then like address that early. But ideally, like you get to the exam like just before you burn out, and then you can just like relax on the holidays after that. So for me, to summarize, it's a month of hard prep. I'm going to map out what resources I have, and I'm going to make sure that the way I practice is as efficient, as time efficient as possible. For me, that's flashcards and practice questions, and then following up what I don't know with revisiting my notes and maybe doing some further reading. In terms of the actual revision of the notes, I'm going to try and get that done before the cramming period starts. And anything I missed from that should have been on my Anki cards, which I'll then address in the final month. If you've got questions about this process, or if you want me to do one about how I would cram in one day, I'd love to hear your feedback, but I'm hoping this is helpful for people going into exam season, and it will apply the same way in a non-medical context as well. One last thing that I've forgotten to mention is to practice the way your exam is formatted. So for example, there's different types of cues that you can use for flashcards. Take a condition like pneumonia. So my top of the flashcard could be fever, cough, chest pain, and then I have to come up with a diagnosis, pneumonia. Or the top of the flashcard could be pneumonia symptoms, and I have to come up with fever, cough, and chest pain. So you think about what the exam question will be formatted like. Because in our exams, it will be like, which of the following is the most likely diagnosis? And you need to tell between pneumonia and something else, pneumonia, lung cancer, tuberculosis, etc. So it's not that useful to say pneumonia symptoms. Rather, your flashcard should be like fever, cough, chest pain, what's the diagnosis? Fever, weight loss, hemoptysis, what's the diagnosis? Or thinking, how do you differentiate pneumonia, TB, and lung cancer? Like that reasoning will help you more in the exam than just saying like pneumonia symptoms, TB symptoms, lung cancer symptoms, etc. Cool. I'll wrap it up there. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I hope to see you next time for another study related video. Thanks, guys.